Well, hello, and welcome to Real Moms Only podcast, where today we are going to be discussing something I think if you have more than one child, you're going to deal with at some point. Today, I'm joined by my daughter, Daly Kay DiNatale.
Hello, everyone.
And we are going to be talking today about sibling rivalry.
Raising rivals.
Yeah, I'll tell you, this is the thing. And having 16 children, there seemed to always be somebody who was rivaling somebody else.
We were all very close in age,
Very
so
close,
it can happen.
Very competitive,
as
very,
a family.
Very athletic, lots of athletes, lots of kids skilled and talented and gifted in different ways. And so sometimes that led to some fighting.
Well, and plenty of headbutting.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yes, this is true.
These full out fights, but definitely plenty of opportunity for
here's the
competition.
Thing. So there were 6 girls first, right? And then all these boys came into the picture. And so my idea of what sibling rivalry looked like with girls was sometimes arguing over who would wear which dress.
Yep.
Sometimes
you stole my shirt.
Who was better at making this, that, or the other, competing in some
Craft
of those
supplies.
ways. Sure, but as the boys came into the picture, sibling rivalry took on a little bit more of a physical aspect. Sometimes the fights, especially around wrestling season.
Oh my goodness, yeah. We got all the boys into wrestling.
Yeah, involved furniture breaking. Sometimes I'm sitting there thinking, okay, well, he's turning purple. Brett, I think you probably need to let up on that, Nelson, right now.
Oh, yeah,
so
exactly.
So sibling rivalry is something that I felt was really appropriate to discuss, especially because today is the day. Now, whenever anyone's listening to this, if it's after 6 p.m. on April 15th, you're going to probably know the outcome of today's thing. But today is a big day in the Reback household because both my boys are playing on opposing lacrosse teams. And this is a not the district championship, but this is the playoff to the district championship. And today's game is going to decide who gets to go to the district championship. And so we have Shepherd playing for the Kings Academy and Judson playing for Newman, go Crusaders. And so it's going to be a heck of a game.
I feel like just talking about this topic in general, as a parent, you don't ever want your kids to fight. You don't ever want your kids to compare each other because they're both special and unique and different in their own ways.
Right.
But sibling comparison is just a natural part of growing up. It's a natural part of figuring out who you are. And I really think diving into, besides our actual rivalry happening, tonight.
Yes.
Looking at sibling rivalry as a whole and what do I even do as a mom? I only have one kid, but I'm thinking ahead for when we decide to have the second one. Like, how am I going to deal with this? What is this going to look like? And, is it something I can avoid? Is it a good thing? I just don't even really know.
I think it's a great thing.
Yeah?
I think it is a gift from God when they start to really kind of compare with one another. And I'll tell you, here's the thing. Like I said, all these girls first, sibling rivalry was a little bit different. Boys, very physical. I was not ready.
It was a physical rivalry.
Woo! Yes, and all this testosterone. It's like, gasoline match strike. It's I didn't understand it. I will just be upfront and tell you that from the time my boys were old enough to be out of cribs until probably a year ago, every single morning in their room was a full-on brawl. It didn't.
I actually do remember.
Yeah,
that.
It didn't matter what it was over, making the bed, whose shoe it was, pick up that sock, who spilled the milk from the cereal that wasn't even supposed to be in that room in the first place.
Milk seems to be
it became every morning. And I remember right around the time that a bunch of them were, 8, 9, 10, I went to David and I was like, every morning for the last 3 years, what are we doing wrong? And he legit looked at me and said, I don't know what's wrong with that. I was like, what do you mean what's wrong with that? They're in there beating the crap out of each other every morning. He said, that's what my brother and I did, I think, through college. I was like, oh my gosh, you mean this is never going to end? He goes, no, that's just what they do. At that point, I kind of took my hands off of it, stopped trying to solve it all, and learned to step back. But I will tell you that, the breaking point between the taunting and the fighting and dynamics, it can feel really overwhelming for a parent, especially if you grew up like I did, pretty much as an only child, or a household of girls, or maybe just one brother, or you didn't really have that kind of tension happening in your house. In our house right now, it is full on smack talking.
I know.
I mean,
I've heard some of it and I'm like, whoa, where is this coming from? It's high school. It's a game.
It's very serious. It's very serious.
The future of the world depends upon
the future
this.
of the world. Listen, I don't know if the politicians that be understand whatever is happening in the world today is not nearly as important as what's happening on the Newman Field tonight at 6 p.m. But here's the truth. These sibling rivalries are meant to be a training ground for getting your kids to sometimes learn how to listen to harsh criticism. Somebody's throwing smack your way, stop and listen. I mean, do you do that wrong? Is there an aspect of this that you can learn from? Learning to take criticism, learning how to deal with these conflicts, learning how to deal with the pressure of it, and building the social skills that it takes to be a leader. So here's some common issues when you are dealing with sibling rivalry, as I'm living day by minute by hour at this point. It can feel like you're a referee 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you are exhausted and drained. Never mind, there might be some highly inappropriate things being said that you're like, I feel like that's just over the line.
I guess I can't really make the your mom jokes because
your mama. Yeah. Well, okay, we both have the same mama.
Thinking about that, like,
true.
that
That's
could be
true.
But still, referee.
Worrying that all this back and forth, what is this going to do to them when they're adults? Like, are they actually still going to be friends when this is all over? Guilt, worrying, like, are you accidentally favoring one kid over the other? And it hurts too. Like if you see one child hurting another, or you perceive that one child is actually being affected by this more than another. And I use the word child. I'm talking about an 18-year-old, quote unquote, man and a 17-year-old man child, and all this, excitement, testosterone, both of them, I think, good leaders on their team. So there's, they're feeling the pressure of their team, and the teams are also kind of fueling this back and forth.
Yeah.
I mean, I've fielded calls from coaches and families, and I'm like, okay, everybody, we're going to have a heck of a game come Tuesday night. This is going to be, I hope it's going to be really fun to watch. But, here's how to turn this into a growth opportunity, really, for the whole family. You can try, I have tried to set some clear boundaries about respect.
Because that's like the first kind of tool that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Setting a boundary. Sounds easy. Sounds simple.
Yeah.
Sounds like if you just set it, it'll be set, right?
Yeah, I've had zero success with that. That has not worked in my house at all. I actually don't even think that's realistic. And you know what gave me a lot of peace?
Yeah.
You were the one, I was talking to Daly Kay about this the other day, and she said, we can't be the only family that's ever dealt with this. And then she realized the Kelsey brothers
the
Manning brothers. And so I actually went and watched some of their YouTubes between the two brothers, and it brought me so much peace.
They're a riot.
They are hilarious, first of all. And then they talked about this whole thing that happened when they were like 17 and 15. Or maybe 18 and 15 or something like that. And the one brother, I'm not a Kelsey, please don't shoot me. I'm not a Kelsey fan. I don't really care. I'm a Cowboys fan. So whatever teams, the Eagles and the Chiefs are not. But I think the older one, it got to the point, two boys are out in the yard playing basketball. And it got a little spicy, and the younger one had really just kind of gained a bunch of weight, and the older one was not used to the younger one being able to push back as hard. It went back and forth, back and forth. The one, they're going back and forth, yelping at it. The game's over. One walks off, ticked off, goes in the kitchen, grabs a gallon of milk, and as all good boys do, just starts chugging it down. And the other one comes in, and it turns into a real brawl,
in the kitchen.
And these two are probably at this point well over 200 pounds, and they're busting into cabinets and breaking on the floor. And then their dad comes in, tries to pull them apart, and they literally the dad was like, my ribs, because they'd fallen on the dad and hadn't realized that they were about to crush their father, all 400 pounds of them. And I thought, that gives me such peace, because My house can feel a little like that,
Yeah.
a little, gasoline explosion over something simple like don't touch the chocolate milk. So it gave me peace to realize that
You could
let's
try to
just-
set some
you
boundaries,
can, and we've had some sit down talks, some individually, like while I'm out working in the yard, some collectively, I'm in my bathroom getting ready to go somewhere and they're both sitting there and we're talking and I'm trying to talk it through with them. I mean, I think 3% of it is getting through on a
Right.
high number, maybe 3%. But at the end of the day, like this game is all they can think about.
right.
And this is hugely important to both of them. And so, I can't play referee. I got to let
No.
them battle it out on the field. But, conflict resolution is a valuable skill
In
relationally.
life.
In life. Like
You use it every day. I use it every day.
every day. And, conflict resolution, getting them to solve it as much as possible without you stepping in. And I'm talking, even if they're little, 4, 5, 6, like try to let it see how it goes. Try to not jump in and stop the conflict. Try to teach them how to work
When they're little.
through the conflict so that as they get older, hopefully, and if you're listening to this and you're just now like coming into this and they're 15, 16, 17, 18 or older, like you are not the referee of their heart. You can guide each of them individually, but ultimately that relationship is theirs.
Yeah. I feel like it is. Yeah, for sure.
I think it's really also important as a parent to really celebrate the wins of each kid. And I know I've talked about before, like celebrate the wins, find something good to focus on. No matter what the challenge is that you're facing, if you can learn to celebrate the individuality of each child, the strength of each child, and help them like shine in their own way.
Yeah, because we were talking about how, because I said to you, like, I went to my first lacrosse game last week. I don't know anything about the sport. Couldn't even tell you what any of the positions are. Nothing. And I said to you, like, oh my gosh, this is going to be crazy that they're both playing the game against each other. And you're like, oh, well, they have different positions.
Yes. So Shepard is the face-off guy for his team, and Judson is the right attack. At least
Don't know
usually
what that
that's what he plays. So in other words, Shepard, when the two teams are facing off right at the beginning of each big play before there's whatever, he's the guy that gets the ball to his team. Judson's the guy that once the ball is in his team, he's supposed to take it and either pass it and assist to get a score or score.
Okay.
So they're not going to be like facing really
So
up against each other.
Individuality in the sense that they're not playing the same position, even though they're playing the same sport, which helps.
Yeah, and these two have grown up playing on the same team most of their lives. In
Right.
fact, some of my best memories of them being little and growing up is Judson would be an exceptional scorer. Shepard can score, and he does score, but once the other team realized that Judson was the scorer and would go after him to try and hurt him, oh, glory. Best part of the whole game would be watching, some kid, they would go after Judson and get him. And I thought, boy, you just signed your warrant right now because the next play would be Shepard. That kid was out. Now, Shepard might be ejected from the game for
Oh
how
my
he took
gosh,
care of that kid.
love it.
But it was so fun to watch them watch Shepard protect his brother and care about the game and fight valiantly.
And they really do love each
They
other.
do. They do really love each other. Even though there's a lot of crap
Drama,
flying
yeah.
around right now, they really, really
So,
do
like,
love each other.
to celebrate individuality, you kind of have to find the things that each child does well in, celebrate it, not compare, oh, Judson or Shepard, they're a better player than this. No. You guys are both great players. You guys both are valuable parts of the team, even on the same team, even on different teams, kind of pulling them towards being the best and using each other to iron sharpens iron.
So my point to them was last week when I was getting ready to go out with David on a date, they're both sitting in the bathroom while I'm putting on my makeup and we're chatting. And I said, why is McDonald's so great? It's because Burger King.
That's true.
What makes Home Depot better? Lowe's.
The best.
Like these competitions are great. They will fuel you to be better. My husband and his brother growing up always competed against each other in cross country, track, later on in triathlons. And it made them better, not because they wanted to beat their brother into the ground and humiliate
No,
him or what have you.
no.
You know, you hear that kind of heart, you have to say, okay, like that's not an honorable
We got to coach
way
out.
to, but, you know, and you girls, you know, all of you girls grew up running cross country, doing triathlon like dad. And some of you, you know, went on to compete professionally,
Right.
like Kemper.
Oh my gosh, incredible.
And Kemper was younger than all three of you older girls. And, you know, once she got into that, she beat you.
Oh my gosh, she still does. I mean, we were laughing the other day because, you know, it was a miracle that I got a 7-mile run in. Well, she ran like 15.
Yeah.
And I got a 10-mile bike in and she biked a 40.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? I can't even, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
Like, the real win is that you have 2 children that are grown, that are still doing
the sport. Listen,
self-driven,
staying active. That was always my goal.
And it's not about,
Yeah.
you know, oh, do I want to do more? Of course I do.
Right.
So I'm inspired that she's able to do it, so I can also work on upping my mileage. But I'm not getting into a game of being mad at her for doing a great job. Like, what is that? No,
and especially like in this matchup right now, like looking for the strengths of each kid. I'm going to admit that there is a large chance that Judson's team comes out ahead.
Right.
There
from the stats standpoint.
Stats alone, large chance that Judson's team wins tonight. But as I was saying to Shepard last night, you know, as face-off guy, he feels a lot of the pressure because if his team gets possession, that's on him right out of the gate.
Point.
And so, like, I always tell him, you know, you are the face-off guy. Your face and how you perceive each drive really drives the team's energy. So, like, your heart going into this game is what matters more than what the stats actually say, than what the points are at the end.
And he's in a key position there.
And I said to him, you know, the funny thing is I hardly remember any of the podiums that you girls ever took, or even that the boys ever took in any races we ever did. What I do remember is the overcoming, the times that there were massive wipeouts, terrible crashes. I remember Dad competing in an Ironman championship, world championship in Hawaii, and got desperately ill on the bike and had to finish a marathon puking and sick as a dog. Like, he actually could have probably placed in his age group that day. He was trained. He got out of the swim, came in like second out of the swim, like leading into the bike, was like really far ahead of his age group. But I remember that race, and all of you who were alive, the oldest 5, remember that race, like his perseverance.
Right.
You know, and I think that's a large part of why Kemper's working for Ironman Foundation right now, is that race, that memory of him carrying her across the finish line.
What it stands for.
I remember Bliss falling. I think she was like 9, maybe 10.
She was really little.
She crashed on a bike ride out in the middle of a bunch of citrus groves at a triathlon, and everybody had finished.
Most always did crash on the bike ride. That wasn't atypical.
I wish I would have known that sometimes that translates into driving habits, but whatever. Anyhow, I remember her finishing that race, like coming in almost last, but I remember her because she came in bloody, scraped, ran her bike in, and then ran the 3.5 miles on the run in the heat, and just, you know, bloody everywhere. And
like
it was glorious because the spirit behind it was what mattered. So when I was talking to Shepard about, listen, you know, stats wise, looks pretty rough, but the truth is we will remember you every single down at that face-off, giving your heart, and your team will follow your lead. Your team will follow your heart.
A shameless plug here really quickly, because I feel like a lot of the battlegrounds for siblings, or if your child doesn't have any siblings, just interpersonal skills, it comes from sports.
Yeah.
You get a lot of life lesson material practice through sports. If you don't have your kids signed up in any sport, I would definitely consider...
Here's your sign from God to do.
Yeah, it definitely has to be a part of your life. I think that we learned more from the sports arena, how to deal with bullies, how to deal with... You know, you'll get stuff like that in a school social setting, but it's not as physical. I think that the sports part of life just helps so much. And you get wins, you get losses, you learn how to deal with it. You have wins and losses as an adult, too.
Every day. And the truth of it is that sports, I've always said, sports, whatever happens to you physically, if you can learn to physically push through pain, physically overcome, it will translate spiritually, and you will learn how to mentally and spiritually, emotionally overcome. When you're out on a run and it's hot as hell and you don't want to be doing it,
Right.
and you push yourself,
Well,
I
that's
just
me
want to
every
walk.
day.
Yeah, you just want to walk, and you say, no, I can run.
Yeah.
I will run. These things push through when you're butting up against a wall professionally or relationally or
Yeah.
emotionally. That does translate. So I love sports for this reason. And so many of my favorite memories in the last 30 years revolve around sports.
Yeah.
Listen, you're going to learn how to teach them healthy conflict. When you, as
Conflict isn't something to avoid.
no, in fact, I don't like conflict avoidance.
No, I don't think it
that's a dangerous
helps.
thing. No, I think it's way better to learn how to deal with healthy conflict. Listen, lots of people, I never saw my parents fight, etc.
Oh, gosh.
I think, listen, that's fantastic if your parents never fought and they got along.
For real.
Great.
Maybe.
It is. David and I don't do a lot of fighting. But if we are going to argue, I don't do it behind closed doors.
No.
I want the kids to see, hey, there are sometimes challenges and we're going to overcome them. And I want them to see us.
Doesn't mean you don't love each other.
Oh my gosh, I love them to death. And I love when we're fiercely fighting about something that matters to both of us, and the decision making makes a difference for the children. I want them to see us doing that. But modeling healthy conflict, this is part of what happens in sports. And the truth is, as a mom, as a dad, know when to step back. Not every fight that your kids are in needs your intervention.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I feel that even when I only have one kid, not everything do I need to stop and fix right away. If he falls over, he's fine.
Yeah.
Like if I make a big deal out of it, he's going to scream and cry. And no, knowing when to step back and just let the kids handle the conflict and handle the resolution. I mean, it really does give you something to be proud of too.
It does. And here's the thing. Solving conflicts, practicing solving conflicts between their teammates, their friends, with their teachers. I mean, I so rarely step in school. In fact, if I step in school, there's a big problem. And the few times that it's happened, I mean, it's hilarious because there'll be, chatter amongst kids, texts and, photos going back and forth. Uh-oh, your mom's on campus and it's the middle of the day. What is going down?
Gosh.
Because like if I show up, like there's a big problem because I want the kids to handle it themselves. But here's the truth about conflict resolution. You want your kids to know that your marriage can handle conflicts, that they can handle conflicts, that their sibling relationships can handle conflicts.
That's very true.
That's so important that like no matter what, this brother, this sister, my mom, my dad, no matter how much they may disagree with me or be angry with me or frustrated or I'm in trouble for this problem, whatever the conflict is that you're facing, that the relationship can handle conflict.
Very true.
Very important. Listen, all your siblings are not always going to love each other. Newsflash, they're not going to love each other after every fight. You might say kiss and make up. You might say hold hands. You might try to get them to get along.
There are certain siblings that like to hold the grudge.
There are some of them.
They never forget.
They don't forget.
10 years later, they bring up something you're like, I didn't even think that happened. No, it did. And here's the receipts.
Here's the receipts to prove it. And sometimes as a parent, I have learned to understand that these sibling issues can run much deeper than whatever the problem is they're arguing about at the moment. Right. There could be personality clashes for sure, unresolved hurts. That's not mine to solve, that's theirs. Differing values. Listen, did not we all learn a bunch during this last political election season? There are differing values flying all over the place. We can still love each other through these differing values. And it's okay that sometimes these things put a strain on our relationships because we have to learn that the relationship can handle that.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, what I have said repeatedly over the last few weeks that we've known that this game could be in the possibilities, and as the game's played out and it turned out, here we go.
Because I think they did the math beforehand.
They did the math like 4 weeks ago, and we're like, if Kings wins every game from here on out, which they did, and if Newman wins every game from here on out, which they did, then they were going to be matched up.
Yep.
And they did this, and I said, listen, long after this game, you guys are God's gift to each other. Judson and Shepard, I'm talking about these two specifically because they're the ones playing today. They're only 3 months apart.
Yeah, very close. Perfect rivalry.
I had Judson, and then 3 months later, we were given the gift of Shepard. And I've said to them their whole lives, You are God's gift to each other. You are best friends. They're both similar, like in color, but I think
I
they
know,
look
really look
completely
identical.
different. Well, now they look different
feel
because Judson dyed his hair white for this game.
I told him it was going to look awful, but he didn't.
The whole team did, whatever. Anyhow.
But my job as a mom with siblings, I feel like it's really not to force them to have a perfect relationship.
No.
I don't know if that's really possible, because I think about our family, and different kids are best friends, different kids never talk to each other, and different kids, can't go a moment without calling or texting the other one, or, it's just every different sibling has their different, flows
and there's
relationships. Like,
there's different things, right? Like, you and Bliss did not like each other.
Oh, no.
growing up.
No, when we lived under the same roof, we fought every single day.
Yes.
And I was always mad at her for something. She was always mad at me for something. Every single day when we lived in the same house.
Yeah.
However, the second we both were not living together, we became best friends.
Yes.
That makes no sense to me.
And I think that...
but it cracks me up.
Part of that is, some people are more challenging to live with than
Yes,
others.
for sure.
I would say you and Bliss are on the opposite ends of the emotional spectrum.
Yep.
She's very emotional, very passionate.
Yep.
You are the most dry sense of this is very cut and dry. Why is everybody emotional?
It's binary. It's either black or white. I don't.
Yeah, I know. But those two things, now you're living in separate places, are actually strengths. You call on her, why is this person upset with me? And she calls on you.
She's got plenty of interesting things going on every single day. I'm always entertained.
She's hilarious. I think that one thing I'm working on, though, with some of the older children, and definitely, realizing to pour into the younger children, is that your sibling, let's say these two are oil and water, they don't get along, they aren't going to mix, is to really try to focus on the strengths of that kid, that other child that you just can't get along with. Focus on the strengths, focus on the good things about them.
Yeah.
Yes, you see these glaring character issues. I got it. I see that too, but especially if they're an adult. Like, the Bible says love covers over a multitude of sins. If I just looked at my husband and looked only at his faults, we would not have a very strong marriage. But I choose to look at all of his strengths. I hope he chooses to do that for me too, so that we can build one another up and fill in each other's gaps. And as siblings, that's what you want. You want them to really try and focus on the good things. And some of the kids that get along really well are looking only at the good things of each other. And then some of the kids that are not getting along really well, I feel like they're looking only at the weaknesses of one another.
And that's a trait to train.
You got to work on that. And I've been working on that. And that's what I've tried to build into these two leading up to this game is, hey, listen, your brother has sharp skills over here. Look at his skills. Follow what he's doing. Hey, your brother has tons of heart. See how he's leading? See how he's getting his team behind him? You got to do that.
Yeah.
Use these strengths to build one another up and appreciate each other for the differences. The world is full of all kinds of different people. If we can learn to focus on the good and the strengths of one another, we'll build a better, stronger family. Listen, these clashes, they're meant to shape your kids' character, even when it's hard to see. And I cannot encourage you enough to trust and pray that God will work in their hearts. I know I have been trusting and praying for that. An awful lot over the last, specifically 20 years, especially the last 10 days, but that you would guide them with the right amount of love and prayer and encouragement and constructive criticism when necessary.
Yeah.
It's funny. I in thinking about how to deal with sibling rivalry, there were times, I remember this one time, oh my goodness, two of my girls could not get along to save their lives. And we had a big party happening that night at our house. And so there's a lot of cleanup to be done. Oh, I remember, this is hilarious. I remember it's so much cleanup to be done. And this party is happening. And so these two are fighting. I'm spending almost all morning just dealing with them fighting over the job that I've given them to do stuff. And I'm like, nothing is happening. And so finally, okay, listen, I don't care what you think of me, but here's what I did. I went into my closet, I grabbed a silk scarf.
Okay.
And I made it into a little, like almost a belt thing. And I took the two of them and I softly tied each of their hands together. And I gave them a list of tasks that they had to accomplish.
Oh my gosh.
But they had to accomplish it together. Now that, you might say that's abuse, you might say that's genius, but I will tell you what happened. The first few minutes, they were yanking on each other and yelling and screaming at each other. And then they started laughing. And then they started figuring out a way to get it done. And the job got done with more laughter and more joy. And they weren't mad at each other. And the jobs were finished, mission accomplished. And I never had to do that again.
No, that's so
It solved the problem because they had to learn how to work together. So listen, sibling rivalry isn't your enemy. You can use it to help them accomplish something great together. Listen, maybe there's a car wash contest. You have cars in your driveway and they need to be washed. Who can do it the fastest, the bestest?
Oh my gosh, that's so cute.
Maybe there's a cause that you're passionate about. I know our family is passionate about serving Gold Star families that believe in me. Maybe there's a fundraising contest between the two of them.
Oh, that would be fun.
You know, I remember years ago when the boys were all on the same flag football team.
Oh my goodness, it was so cute. They were all like 2 feet tall. Too.
Yeah, they were 5, 6, 7, and 8 years old. And I decided that I would pay them $1 a flag.
Oh, probably got
I
run
was,
out of town.
I
yeah.
was broke. I was absolutely broke, especially with ransom.
$1 a flag's a lot.
I was
What an
like,
idiot.
there were games I owed the boys like $25 each. It was insanity because they would get good at like pulling 2 kids' flags at once.
Oh my gosh.
You know, I was like, that kid didn't even have the ball. Doesn't matter. I took out the flag.
You
So
did say $1 a flag.
I did say $1 a flag. And so these contests show them that this rivalry can actually benefit them and somebody else.
Right.
This competition can make them a better competitor, which is ultimately what you want for them in the end. Sibling rivalry isn't the enemy. It's a chance for growth. And don't just look at this as though you've got to survive this, because you need to focus on, you are raising kids who need to know how to love one another, look for the good in each other, use their rivalry, use the competition to make each other better, to forgive each other when they've taken it a step too far, as has happened in my house multiple times this week, and to realize that their relationships can stand the strength of conflict. So I want to encourage all of you, if you're facing sibling rivalry, that you need to learn to step back a little bit, appreciate it, have a sense of humor.
Sense of humor.
Let it do its work. Keep showing up. Hey, all of you moms out there, you've got this. And if you're listening to this in time, Cardinal Newman High School, 6 p.m. It's going down for real. It's going down tonight. I can't wait to see. Either way, I'm a winner.
And a lot of good lessons either way.
A lot of good lessons. Thanks so much for listening here at Real Moms Only. Thank you, Daly Kay, for joining me. And until next time, God bless you.